And I've got Steve Anderson with me here this morning. Hi, Steve.
Good morning.
It's good to have you back in again. I think it's about a year ago we had you in.
Yeah, I guess so, yes.
Some poems. Steve's going to sort of talk a bit about... it's going to read some poems and we're going to talk a bit about them.
Oh, I see. Right, I'll kick off with a poem then. Well, mental health being the issue, I thought perhaps I'll start with this one. It's called 1 in 4, which is this very popular statistic that's bandied about. It's a poem of 4 verses with 4 lines in each. And it's called 1 in 4. 1 in 4 we hear will suffer. I rather think it to be a quarter. A quarter in us lurks, waiting the opportunity to show the quarter or expose the whole. There are 4 quarters in all. Nudging the carcass, smoothing round, twisting up, tangling about, unravelling ravel, where light never puts on its shoes. To begin dressing laces, knotted to every step so far. Not 1 in 4. 4 quartered in 1.
Thank you, Steve. I think we were chatting a bit about that before we came on air, and I think it's a really interesting point, that thing about you were saying about 1 in 4 separates. It's, some people have experiences and other people don't.
Yeah, well, it gives us the license to think it's nothing to do with us. I'm one of the 3 quarters that aren't affected, but I think that's not a healthy way to view it, because we know we feel different every day, and we're all on this very broad spectrum of which occupies the human condition, and some people manifest human traits more strongly, more of the time, and are more easily identified as being having difficulty with particular issues, and that can be identified as a mental problem. But they're only human traits that we all have, and I don't really see that it's helpful to view them as something else that we don't all have aspects of. And really, how could it be anything else? 1 quarter of the population can't be displaying something that doesn't belong to us all. Yeah, this is something that we all experience. These emotions are things, or the things that go with depression, are all things that we all experience, but maybe just to different degrees. We're maybe at different points on the spectrum, and at different times at different points. Throughout the day, moment to moment. And it's something that I thought just recently was not so much that there's one of us on the spectrum, but the many parts that we occupy ourselves are all on different parts on the spectrum. One of your emotional makeup can be in one place, and your physical makeup can be in another place. And how does one draw the line between the physical and the emotional? So there must be bits in between. It's that we have a
That's interesting.
we have a spectrum within ourselves, and that doesn't all remain contained in one place. That can be put on another spectrum. It's really not so straightforward. And if we accept that, as I began to do 6 months after running a workshop for special needs folk, and not arriving in this community setting thinking that I was a bigoted person with attitudes about mental health and diagnosable syndrome and so on. But I did begin to see that these are people just like people. And I did have the bigotry of thinking that there was something that they had that I didn't. And actually it's very helpful, it has been very helpful to me anyway, to make that understanding
because it's helped me address the difficulties that I've had through a childhood exposed to things I shouldn't have been exposed to by a mother who was mentally ill, which I didn't really understand until into my late 30s probably. Because you don't, you have a childhood and you don't know that your childhood is odd or
different from other people's.
Different from other people's.
Yeah.
It's just what you have, and that is your building blocks for conducting the rest of your life. And it's taken, and in fact, it's taken the spur of, as I mentioned last time I was here, I was diagnosed with an aggressive advanced cancer. It's taken the spur of that to help me take another really useful step to understand the nature of my own difficulties.
So it's kind of made you kind of look at things again.
Well, it's given me the ability to. Part of it may be the medication, actually, because the medication is there's a line in a poem that I'm not allowed to read apparently, but there's two lines: losing my willy to live in cancer's cure of chemical castration.
You can. Do you know what? If you want to read it, you can. I might just have to bleep out some words if it feels like that's the next one to read. Then.
Well, that's enough from there. The cancer that I have is advanced prostate cancer, and the medication has taken. It's a chemical castration, basically. But we were speaking about the veneer of normality that we all try to project as people who aren't on this spectrum. There's a not so much a veneer, more a sort of gauze, a filter that men look through, a filter of testosterone that they judge everything with, and I've had that removed, and that is a liberating thing. It just is so freeing, and I don't know whether I would ever have got to that without this gift of the cancer, which seems such a paradox, because I'm told it's a terminal condition. I will die with this disease, but it has been so useful to understand the stuff that I've had such difficulty in putting aside from these early years, like I was saying about the early building blocks that one's family situation gives you to deal with the rest of your life, and I haven't been able to deal with the rest of my life in a really functional way.
Yeah, there's something about those blocks. They're sort of like set out pathways, reference points, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're very difficult to circumvent. Acknowledging them, the first thing, but then you still live with them. That they're still the tool that you have, despite the fact that you know it's not very good. It's very difficult to change what you learn very early on.
Yeah, it's almost like they kind of set down a groove, like a path. When you kind of saw in a bit of wood and you try and saw in a different thing and it's going in the wrong direction, it's very difficult to create a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll read the last verse of this poem. I'll repeat those two lines there. Losing my willy to live in cancer's cure of chemical castration, life shows itself a test. No more testosterone's testicular torment, but of non-copular courage, winning the will to live with intimacy of self disabused, romance reordered, friendship found. in truth, the now. Well, if you imagine, I mean, it's a good analogy, I think, really, because it does feel like something's been taken, the scales lifted from your eyes. I think that's I don't know if it's a biblical term, the scales lifted from your eyes, so that you can actually see things. You don't have to look at them with this background noise of which is so often alluded to as a joke in male laddish culture, and this idea that the culture has of 18 and now you're an adult and you can see, you know, all this pornography and gratuitous violence and which is all testosterone driven, as far as I can see, and there seems to be a view held that once you're 18, you're able to cope with this, and it doesn't affect how you relate to women and to other males, and it's patently wrong. You know, it's
so it's something about feeling that you don't have to be part of that culture.
Yes.
Or?
Well, again, because I've had a very sort of impoverished childhood in dealing with the difficulties of life, I have sought male role models, and I have been quite fortunate, I think, to get to where I am. I've been fortunate to come across the male people that I've had friendships with to help me along with some of my difficulties. But the older I get, the fewer people I observe as men who are free of this haze of testosterone that they look through, that are really human, just a human being trying to push forward what they know about their human condition, free of the stuff that you know, we're bombarded. The culture bombards us with sexual references all the time, and it's a male-dominated thing. It seems, it's how it feels to me, very uncomfortable. It has always been very uncomfortable for me, and I suppose
it doesn't seem to do anyone any favours, really. No one seems to get anything out of it. Like you say, it's that kind of
Well, there is a strata that makes a lot of money out of it.
Well, yeah.
And
other than people making a lot of money out of it, people who
and the people using sex to market everything.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because actually the things you're talking about are not so much. It's not sex in itself. It's about it's actually an attitude to that, isn't it? And about that kind of sale and the kind of cultural stuff around it.
Yes, and
more than anything.
Yeah, and the virtue of relationship and the, you know, the throwaway culture and the throwaway, how that impinges on relationship and makes relationships throwaway. I have been with my partner for nearly 28 years, and it hasn't been easy. It's been really uncomfortable a lot of the time, but there's value in that, because it obliges you to look at the things that you carry in yourself that are difficult, and if you have the difficulty in the relationship and then go to another relationship because you're having the difficulty, all you do is you transfer transfer the difficulty, which is not really commensurate with the value of the consciousness that we've been given, in my opinion. And but the culture doesn't see the value of it because it doesn't relate to the throwaway marketeering that makes the money out of selling stuff with sex.
Yeah, and you lose with that kind of focus, with that kind of distraction and that focus being taken away from, like you say, your kind of like your humanity, your ability to relate and your ability to grow. People are losing a lot in that, aren't they? A lot of opportunities.
Yeah, and it's easy to see where it's come from. And my father was born in 1917, and he was, he lived with genuine hardship, and they had several maxims that they would have lived with. If it's worth doing, it's worth doing well, and waste not, want not, and stuff. Maxims that have just gone out the window because you can just get a new one.
It's like consumer culture, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a big sort of, It's interesting sort of thinking about that, because actually all of this stuff sort of is that kind of consumerism versus relating. Actually, it seems like a lot of what you're talking about, as much as anything.
It's very difficult not to let it in, to let it impinge on you, no matter how much you agree with it. In yourself, you step outside and everybody's being sort of manipulated really by the culture.
Yeah, kind of bombarded with messages which are not about relating to people, not about working at things. Yeah. Have you got another poem for us?
Well, in talking about relationships there, this I didn't start with this Careless Gait, did I? No, I started with the 1 and 4. This is called The Careless Gait. Gait, spelt Gait. And it's about relationship and meeting people, and how we unconsciously make all sorts of allowances from our own character that we would later on not make those allowances because the relationship doesn't really fit with how we are. But then, just like I said, I've been with my partner for 28 years, and we have lived through that difficulty and then come to make those accommodations again in a more healthy, conscious way. Anyway, this is called The Careless Gait. The careless gait of lovers' first engagement, unspoken joy stretching time and movement, unconditional responses to every test and question, each breath of life a sigh of satisfaction. Now, years and cots and pits have passed, and every answer questioned with unspoken irritation. Repose has no home. All seeking is undone, touch denied, love refuted. Reason without purpose where once purpose stood unhindered, fresh and stout, happy in emotion. The vacuum now corrupts. Arrest that forgotten time. Move what was those years meant. The proof is told. It is an overflowering you seek, surrounded by blooms unseen, grasping at more in abundance. Reopen the gate. Careless. The careless gate, and the last line is reopen the gate. Careless. One has to live through difficulty to appreciate anything, I think, really. You know, you don't appreciate food so anywhere near so much as when you've not eaten for a couple of days, or sex when you haven't had it for a long extended time, and you learn to appreciate things through the lack of them. The other analogy that is coming into my mind is I play the guitar, and I lived with a guy who was studying jazz guitar, and he had a regime where he practiced technique, not tunes, playing songs or anything, but technique for 7 hours a day. And but you practice that much that you don't have to think about it anymore. And there's something like that about relationship as well, and the practice of life. You practice good behaviour, you practice how you know will benefit the situation, rather than allow the base emotions to play any part, which again for me is the necessarily the best way to say thank you for the consciousness that we've got. It seems rather silly to have such a marvellous consciousness and not to try to develop it. And I suppose these the middle three verses of this speak about, every answer questioned with unspoken irritation. It's, I would imagine most people would recognise that within relationship.
Yeah.
You don't speak about it. You don't practice the communication. And we also make the mistake of thinking that words and what we say has any relation to reality or truth, or the education system gets you to believe that language is some sort of absolute, where it's patently not.
Well, there are lots of other ways of communicating. I think that thing about actions speak louder than words can be a very good one to remember.
Yes. I agree. And then move what was those years meant. Why have you stayed together all this time? There's got to be a reason. There's something deeper somewhere, and it's an overflowering you seek. You can't have the flowers all the time. There has to be, and you wouldn't appreciate it if it was.
Yeah.
If it's good all the time, you don't appreciate it. It's good.
You have to have the ups and downs, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, and the last line, reopen the gate, careless. And it's that practice, like I'm saying about the jazz instrumentation. You practice and practice till you don't have to think about it anymore, and you can just allow yourself to be happy about things. I think it's perhaps tending towards a Buddhist way, and Buddhism is a lot to do with the practice of meditating on good thoughts about your fellow humans.
Yeah, so it's something about going back to that commitment then.
Yeah, commitment to the again, which is not part of the throwaway culture. Committing to things. I worked as a lecturer in mainstream FE, and as a joiner, and these pre-16s, I'd show them how to do a woodwork joint, and they'd have a go and they say, "Oh, well, I've done that. I've done. Oh, I don't need to practice it." And I couldn't think of anything better than practicing the same thing again and again, because it heightens your awareness of everything, doing the same thing again and again and again. Having got to the time in my life that I have, I understand this, but the culture around these young children being able to say to me, "No, well, I've done it."
So it's like an instant gratification thing, isn't it? That they're kind of missing out on the. Yeah.
And it's again easy to see where it's come from, because as I was saying about my father in 1917, he would have known genuine hardship. The generations between then and now have been, delighted to see how much easier life has become, and have accepted a lot of the cultural norms that have come about surrounding it, despite the fact that they've been alert in some respect to thinking, oh, that's not quite right, but because it's part of the whole picture of everything getting easier, and they've equated that with the growth that you were speaking about earlier, growing as a person, which and it's not quite that way. I don't think growing as a person is not to do with being warmer and better fed. There's more to it, and it's been lost. Religion's out the window. It's it's not been replaced with anything that's very functional as far as holding society together is.
It's interesting because it's making me think about that thing about relationships and people. It's like describing people having quite a lot of surface relationships, so it's all kind of like happy times, or we're just going out for a laugh, and we're just kind of like quite surface, and that thing about the other relationships where you kind of share things more deeply, you have more of a commitment, can kind of, they're more powerful, they bring a lot more, they're stronger or something. Have you got a final poem for us?
Oh gosh, another one. All right, yes, go on. This one is called "To Write May Be the Closest." And again, as I was observing when I was choosing a few poems to bring along, these ones to do specifically with mental health issues seem to be opening and closing with very similar phrases. To write may be the closest. To write may be the closest. The closest I come to love. To love myself, though yet hid. Though yet hid, the shroud is. The shroud is seen to cover the day today. Today, tears blindfold came. Tears blindfold came again. And the feather stroked the ink around another pattern that, despite the fit, becomes livery for the forgotten wardrobe. The truth of that love untellable. To write may be the closet. The motivation that we have to present ourselves as normal in social settings is high. We don't want to be seen as not normal. So we, and particularly you observe it in the teenage years. They really want to be normal and different as far as the market brand.
But different in the same way that their friends are.
Yeah. So, and it's tribalism, I suppose, really. But this, where I keep starting a poem with a phrase and ending with the same phrase, although slightly corrupted, and in the middle there is the allusion to the difficulty that I've experienced. And this one, to write may be the closest. To write may be the closest I come to love myself. Because it's offering up stuff that's very personal, which I have learned in the last few years of performance poetry is the stuff that touches and moves people to the point where they really say, Steve, thank you for saying that. I've been really...
that's what connects people, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I've been very surprised with how positive people's reactions have been, and the conversations that have been elicited. And then towards the end of this poem is, despite the fit becomes livery for the forgotten wardrobe, the truth of that love untellable. It's still the amount of work that one has to do on oneself to really get to that point of having the scales taken from one's eyes and be simply human and relate to people as people unconditionally and without bigotry and so on. It's something to aspire to.
So working on that, to get that kind of clarity, that openness, that honesty, that be kind of to be able to be real.
And it's rather and the final line of this, to write may be the closet. It may be that that's the only place the work can go on, and it can't be expressed. You know, there's was a Taoist expression: he who knows does not speak, he who speaks does not know. And it's to do with trying to communicate the stuff that there isn't language for. And the peace, the internal peace that you want, in my experience, is of value. It has an effect on who you are, but to try and really talk about it with people is dysfunctional. It's not helpful
because words can't express.
It's better to sit with the positive feeling and allow it to influence how you behave.
Thanks for coming today, Steve. I really appreciate it. It's been really good to have
you.
Thank
you for the invitation. It's very useful.
Thank you.